Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm going to be going over the upcoming UFC card this weekend, UFC 301, and I'm going to be breaking down every single fight and predicting them in chronological order, starting with the first fight on the card, which is Alessandro Costa versus Kevin Borjas. Now, this fight, both guys, Kevin Borjas been in the UFC for one fight, lost to Joshua Van. Not a bad loss at all by any means. And Alessandro Costa, been in the UFC for a little while, only has losses to, he has more losses than this, but recently he only has losses to Amir Albazi and Steven Erceg. Steven Erceg is fighting for the title on the same card, so again, not a bad loss. Both guys have a fairly good track record in the UFC so far. Alessandro Costa got a great ground game. He's got good jiu-jitsu, he's got good submissions, he's got decent wrestling. He's okay on the feet, but that's not exactly where he shines. He has decent power, but I wouldn't, pick him by KO necessarily in this fight. And Vince Pichel, great power, fairly technical on the feet, cruises to a lot of decisions, just kind of outpointing guys on the feet. So I am going to go with Alessandro Costa. I don't know a ton about these two fighters, but from what I do know, I do believe that Alessandro Costa is going to be able to out-grapple Vince Pichel, and I don't know why I was looking at Vince Pichel. Kevin Borjas, I believe he will be able to out-grapple Kevin Borjas in this fight, and I do believe that he will be able to avoid the gnarly power of Kevin Borjas and win a fairly, easy, I'm going to say 29-28 decision. Maybe Kevin Borjas lands the heavier shots in one round and takes a round off of him. But I'm going to say 29-28 decision for Alessandro Costa. Moving up on the card, we have Ismael Bonfim versus Vince Pichel. This is where Vince Pichel comes into all of this. So Vince Pichel hasn't fought in 2 years. He's coming back to fight Ismael Bonfim, who kind of got fraud checked in his last fight against Benoit Saint-Denis. But, not really, because we know Benoit Saint-Denis is a very good fighter. Excuse me. But I do believe that Ismael Bonfim is just better than Vince Pichel everywhere. And, adding in the factor that Vince Pichel's been out for 2 years, never even won that against that great of competition. He beat Jim Miller, but Jim Miller, he's been old for a while, and beat Austin Hubbard. That really doesn't mean anything, beat Roosevelt Roberts. So he's just beating up these UFC reject cans from The Ultimate Fighter. So honestly, I think this is a no-brainer. I think Ismael Bonfim is going to go out there, and I think he's going to KO KO Vince Pichel. I don't know why I'm mixing up my names so much today. I think he's going to KO Vince Pichel in the very first round within the first 2 minutes of the fight. Moving up on the card, we have Diani Barbosa versus Ernesta Cacheque, I believe is how you say it. I could be butchering that name, but whatever. So Diani Barbosa, coming up, they're both coming off the Contender Series, so we don't know a ton about these two. I usually don't do a lot of research into, regional scene fighters, but I did watch their Contender Series fights. I just feel like, Karachekaiti, or however the fuck you say it, I believe that she is a little bit better of a just overall fighter, but especially in the striking, I do believe she's a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and go Ernesta by decision. I don't think we're going to get a KO here. It's going to be like most boring, stinky women's MMA fights. It's going to go to a decision. I'm going to go Ernesta by 30-27, 29-28 decision. Actually, most likely 29-28. Maybe Diani Barbosa takes a round off of her. Ernesta is undefeated, so I doubt that, she's going to lose this fight. Diani Barbosa has 2 losses to two people I don't know. Well, I know Josiane Nunes. She's also not great at all. So I'm going to go Ernesta. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the last name again. By 29-28 decision. And it's going to be a boring-ass fight. This is a piss break if you've ever seen one. We're going to move up on the card here. Marcio Ruffy versus Jamie Malarkey. Interesting fight. Marcio Ruffy got, a great KO on the Contender Series, and he's just been knocking out pretty much everyone he's fought. He had a loss by KO to another guy in SFT, whatever the hell that promotion is. But I do believe, after watching a couple of his fights, I watched the Dana White Contender Series fight and I watched one of his regional fights. I don't remember exactly against who, but I just see gnarly power. I see explosiveness, and I don't see any of that with Jamie Mullarkey. Jamie Mullarkey struggles with guys that have massive power and are explosive, and got KO'd by Nasrat Hakparast in his last fight. Not a good look. And also got KO'd by Muhammad Naimov. Also not that great of a look. So, Jamie Mullarkey, his weakness is KOs. This guy's strength is his KO power. I am going to go Marcio Rufi by second round TKO. I think he's going to crack Jamie Mullarkey bad in the first round. Jamie Mullarkey is going to be very patient for the rest of the first round. Try not to do anything drastic. Try not to get, meme KO'd. And then I think, in the second round, Marcio Rufi's going to put the pressure on him. He's going to start, pumping, his jab and throwing some leg kicks, and then eventually circle around, get the outside foot position, and knock Jamie Mullarkey out cold. Let's move up on the card. Again, we got Joaquim Silva versus Drakkar Klose. I think this is going to be a good fight, actually. I do enjoy, this matchmaking here. Drakkar Klose coming off that Batista bomb over Joe Selecki, and Joaquim Silva coming off the unanimous decision win over Clay Guida. Here's what I think is going to happen in this fight. Drakkar Klose has a slight grappling deficiency, and I think Joaquim Silva is going to try to use that to his advantage. However, I could low-key see another Batista bomb from Drakkar Klose here. If Joaquim Silva is on the ground and trying to use his BJJ, which he's very good at, if he does try to cater to his strengths and use his BJJ, I could see him getting slam KO'd. I could see him getting slammed and then, KO'd from hammer fists. Either way, I think Drakkar Klose has the advantage on the feet. I think he's got way more power. He has gnarly power. So I'm going to go Drakkar Klose first round KO. I think it's going to be, fairly competitive until it isn't. And I think Drakkar Klose is just going to knock him out. I'm going to say TKO, on the ground via ground and pound after, or Joaquim Silva pulls guard or does something stupid like that. Let's move up on the card. Jean Silva versus William Gomez. William Gomez, has done pretty well in the UFC so far. Got a win over Francis Marshall, split decision. Got a win over Giannis Gamori by TKO body kick. And John Silva, KO'd Weston Wilson in his last fight. And before that, KO'd Kevin Vallejos on the Contender Series. I'm usually pretty inclined to believe that these Contender Series guys are not as good as, people they find from other promotions. Because I just believe that, these Contender Series guys get hyped up a lot. I do believe the UFC tries to set them up for success, but I do believe William Gomez is going to win this fight. I think this fight's going to be boring. I think it's going to be terrible. I think this is the second piss break of the entire card. And, I just think William Gomez is just going to strike himself to a majority decision here, or a unanimous decision even, because, John Silva, not that great. I think he's got KO power. I do think he could potentially KO William Gomez. But I just don't see that happening. I think William Gomez is too technical. He's got the speed advantage. He's got just the overall striking advantage. I'm going to go William Gomez via 30-27 decision. I think this is not even going to be a competitive fight, and I don't think it's going to be an exciting fight either by any means whatsoever. Let's move up on the card once again. Elvis Brenners versus Mircek Orolbai. This is a hard one for me. I've went back and forth on this all week. There's some unknowns about Orolbai. Could he get KO'd? That's interesting to me because he only has one loss, is by decision. He's got 50% of his wins, so 6 wins by KO/TKO, and then another 5 wins, 42% of his wins by submission, and then the rest by decision. I think this fight is going to be interesting. I do think Elvis Brenner will rock Mircek Orolbai, but I do believe that I can trust Mircek Orolbai to cruise his way to a, I'm going to say submission. I'm going to say second round submission for Mircek Orolbai. I think he's got the better grappling of the two. I think he'll try to take down Elvis Brenner in the first round, but Elvis Brenner's pretty explosive. I think he's going to be able to get Mircek Orolbai off him in the first round, but I think Orolbai is just going to be wearing on him, that kind of Marab style where he just is constant grappling. I think Mircek Orolbai also has decent power, so I think he could drop Elvis Brenner and then submit him from there. So I'm going to go second round submission, probably a rear naked choke for Mircek Orolbai. I'm excited for this fight. I think both guys are, have good potential in the UFC. Both guys on 5-fight win streaks. So let's see what happens here. I think our Oralby's on a longer win streak than 5, but I'm just seeing his last 5 opponents here on Tapology. But I am excited to see where Erceg Oralby can go, and I am excited to see if Elvis Brenner, what if he shocks us again? I mean, he shocked us against Guram Kutateladze. I mean, he KO'd Guram, and no one saw that coming. So I'm going Erceg Oralby, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see an Elvis Brenner KO in this fight. Let's move up on the card to Karolina Kowalkiewicz versus Yasmin Lucindo. Yasmin Lucindo, built like a man. Great, grappling. I think she's got good striking as well. I don't remember that much of her fights. Karolina Kowalkiewicz, primarily a striker. I believe she also has decent grappling. So both ladies fairly well-rounded in this fight. Yasmin Lucindo only has a loss in the UFC to Yasmin Jauregui. I don't remember that fight, but I do know Yasmin Jauregui was hyped up to be this big thing, and then she wasn't that good at all. And the only loss I see in Karolina Kowalkiewicz's last 5 fights was to Jessica Penn by armbar. Not a good look at all. So I don't think either of these girls are necessarily top level, UFC women's MMA strawweights, but I do believe that Yasmin Lucindo is the better of the two. I think she's just going to cruise her way to yet another stinky decision. I think there's going to be 3 stinky decisions so far. Damn, that sucks. But, hey, we're still on the prelims. We got time for, the prelim headliner, the main card, all that stuff. But I do believe that, for being, hyped up, I guess, I think Yasmin Lucindo gets a little bit of hype. She's a minus 350 favorite. I think that's ridiculous. I think Karolina Kowalkiewicz can definitely win this fight, but I am siding with Yasmin Lucindo via 29-28 decision. Let's move up on the card to the prelim headliner, Joanderson Brito versus Jack Shore. This is a good fight. This is a good scrappy fight. I like both these contenders here. Jack Shore has a loss to Ricky Simone in not his last fight, but the fight before that. And Joanderson Brito has a loss to Bill Algeo. Both of those, not too bad of losses to have, especially on Jack Shore's side. But I do believe, just look at the two guys, okay? Joanderson Brito is built. He's strong. He's strong in the clinch. He's strong in the grappling. Jack Shore just kind of looks kind of flabby. He's got that Darren Till-esque build. So I am going to go with Joanderson Brito via submission. I'm going to go round 2. I think he's just going to be muscling around Jack Shore in the first round, throwing him down at ease, getting his takedowns, rinse and repeat. I think he also has decent power on the feet. He could clip Jack Shore and put him out. But, I think Jack Shore's scrappy. I think he'll be able to stay in there. But I do think he will get submitted on the ground eventually, either late first round or, somewhere in the second round. So I'm going to go Joanderson Brito via second round submission. And yeah, I think it will be a fun fight while it lasts, but we shall see, I guess. Next fight on the card, main card opener, Paul Craig versus Caio Borralho. Before I get into the main card, I just want to say this main card is very lackluster in my opinion. I'm excited for the main and co-main and the featured bout a little bit, but maybe I'm just spoiled because we've had 298, 299, and 300 in a row, and those have all been, incredible cards. But either way, just comparing this card to those cards, this card looks a little dookie in my opinion. But, hey, it's still a pay-per-view. It's better than these garbage Apex Fight Nights, so I will take it. We got Paul Craig versus Caio Borralho. Paul Craig coming off a loss to Brendan Allen by submission. Before that, he got a win over Andre Muniz. That really doesn't mean anything. Andre Muniz is not that good. And lost to Johnny Walker and Volkan Oezdemir when he was still at light heavyweight. This will be at middleweight. Caio Borralho, beat Abus Magomedov in his last fight. It couldn't even finish him, which is kind of, disappointing. Took Abus Magomedov to a decision, which is a bit of a red flag. And beat Mikhail Oleksiejczuk by submission, beat Makhmud Murdov by submission. Those are his last 3 fights going back all the way to last year. So who am I siding with on this fight? I think Paul Craig, I think Paul Craig is a bit of a dead body at this point in time. He's been KO'd. He's been submitted over and over again. And he really only can get wins over, people. He used to be able to beat, the top echelon of the light heavyweight division, but ever since he's gone down to middleweight, just hasn't looked good. He's 36 years old. He's probably nearing the end of his career. I'm going to side with Caio Borralho here by a decision. I think he's going to be able to out-grapple Paul Craig. I think he's just got to be careful of those triangle chokes. He's got to be careful of, the arm bars and all the other submissions that Paul Craig is going to try to throw up off his back. But I'm going to go Kyle Barrio by out-grappling and out-striking Paul Craig to a 30-27 decision. I don't think this will be a boring fight, but I don't think it'll be an amazing fight. I think it'll be a decent level fight, and I do think it's, relevant to the division. They're trying to shoot Kyle Barrio up a little bit more in the middleweight division. I think a win over Paul Craig can do just that. Even though Paul Craig is unranked, he does have a good name. So let's go. I'm going with Kyle Barrio in this fight. Let's go Kyle Barrio. And let's move on to the next fight on the card. Kyle Barrio, by the way, still pretty young. I do think he can become something, but, with the skill set I saw in his last fight, it is a little bit worrying. I want to see drastic improvements in this fight. Next fight, Michel Pereira versus Ihor Potieria. Ihor Potieria got moved off the Saudi Arabia card last second. I was kind of excited to see him fight Sharam Magomedov, but whatever. I'm sure they'll find him a replacement opponent. Michel Pereira looked gnarly in his last fight. Looked absolutely gnarly. We've just recently found out that this guy looks gnarly at middleweight. KO'd Andre Petrosky and then KO'd Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. Definitely fits in way better than welterweight. No longer going to be missing weight like he always was. Ihor Potieria doesn't have that incredible of a last, few fights here. Beat Robert Berchek. I mean, who the fuck even is that? I barely even remember that fight. I just remember he got a, decent unanimous decision over him. Clearly separated himself. And lost to Rodolfo Bellato and Carlos Ulberg by KO. Neither of those guys am I super high on either. I think Ihor Potieria is just going to be one of those mid-level floater fighters that they just put on cards because he's slightly entertaining. I think Michel Pereira is just going to brutally knock him out in this fight. I got him by first round KO. I think he's going to put the pressure on. He's extremely, extremely explosive, and I can see a first round KO or submission, honestly. He surprised me last time with how fast he latched up that submission. But I'm going to go Michel Pereira via first round KO, probably in the first couple minutes, to be honest with you. Moving up on the card, we got Anthony Smith versus Vitor Petrino, or the dead carcass of Anthony Smith versus Vitor Petrino. Oh man, I can already hear I can already hear the excuses. Can you guys hear that? Can you guys hear that? On paper, he beats Petrino, guys. I don't know if you knew that, but on paper, Anthony Smith beats Petrino 9 times out of 10. And then, he's going to be like, oh, well, that was a fluke. I wasn't my best self that night. Anthony Smith, shut up. We don't want to hear it. You're a dead carcass. You need to retire. You still have dreams and aspirations of becoming a champion. I get it. It sucks, but come on, bro. We don't want to see you take this much damage anymore. Vitor Petrino is going to steamroll you. He's going to knock you out in the first round. Your chin is just shattered, man. You got chinned by Khalil Roundtree. Beat Ryan Spann, but that doesn't really even mean shit. Ryan Spann's shit. Lost to Johnny Walker. Lost Magomed Ankalaev, not a bad loss, and he did get injured in that fight. But, I mean, come on, dude. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Anthony Smith, 35 years of age, almost 36. I believe this should be the end of his career. If he gets KO'd here, Anthony Smith has to retire. Otherwise, he's just going to go full Ferguson mode. He already has started down that path. It's less like Ferguson, more like Dominic Reyes, but still, you don't want to aspire to be either one of those guys. I'm going to go Vitor Petrino. First couple minutes, he's going to rock Anthony Smith bad. You know what? No, I'm not going to say first round KO. One thing I will give Anthony Smith credit for is he is tough as a son of a bitch. I do think he will make it to the second round. But I do think he's going to get brutally knocked out in this fight. I think he's going to take a ton of damage in the process. And I'm just, I think it'll be exciting to watch. But I just feel bad for Anthony Smith, man. I think he's completely delusional. I think he has one of the worst career managements in the history of the UFC. It's tough to watch, kind of. Let's move on to the co-main event. Jose Aldo returning against Jonathan Martinez. This is a great fight. I love this fight. Here's what I think the story of the fight's going to be. I think Jonathan Martinez, he heavily relies on his leg kicks, but Jose Aldo also has gnarly leg kicks, and he is known for his ability to check leg kicks. I think Jose Aldo's going to get a win here, guys. Just because he lost to Merab doesn't mean shit. Merab is probably one of the best in the division, or is one of the best in the division, probably the best in the division. And before that, beat Rob Font, beat Pedro Munoz, beat Marlon Vera. Come on. This dude is still at the top of his game. I know he's 37 years old, going on 38. And Jonathan Martinez is the up-and-comer they want to promote in this fight. However, I do think Jose Aldo has that veteran experience, and I do think he's going to be able to nullify Jonathan Martinez's leg kicks. And we're going to see how good Jonathan Martinez really is without his leg kicks in this fight. Give me Jose Aldo by decision. I'm going to go 29-28 decision. Maybe Jonathan Martinez lands a couple leg kicks early, and, it takes some time for Jose Aldo to figure out his rhythm again. He's got the ring rust a little bit. But I'm going Jose Aldo by 29-28 decision. I think, I think he's going to be faster. I think he's going to be landing the better punches. I think he's going to be landing the better kicks, and he can mix in the grappling. Let's move up on the card to the main event of the evening. Alexandre Pantoja versus Steven Erceg. Random matchmaking. I already made a whole video about this, but I don't mind it. No other valid contenders. So, Steven Erceg, has looked good in the UFC so far, but against kind of lackluster competition. KO'd Matt Schnell, beat Alessandro Costa, beat David Dvorak, and I'm before that. He's had 3 fights in the UFC, and he's getting a title shot. If that doesn't show you that flyweight is the worst weight class, I don't care that people say heavyweight is, flyweight is. I will die on that hill. But dude has three UFC fights. He's getting a title shot. I guess KOing Matt Schnell gets you a title shot now. But anyways, I'll back off of all that. Steven Erceg got good power, technical, fast. Got decent grappling as well. I believe, doesn't he have a couple submissions on his resume? He does. He has quite a few submissions on his resume. He has 6 submissions. So I do believe that Steven Erceg he's the whole package, man. He can do it all. Alexandre Pantoja, primarily a grappler. We've seen that especially in his last couple fights where he can be kind of half-guard campy. And he's got a lot of submissions as well. Got some KO power as well. I think this is going to be a fun fight. I think this is going to be a scrappy fight. I think this is a fight you should definitely watch. I am excited for this fight. I love these types of fights where can Steven Erceg step up to this highest level and succeed. I love testing these kind of unknown guys, even though, I do complain about meritocracy and stuff like that when it comes to this fight specifically. I do like the fact that, we're giving Steven Erceg the biggest test of his life, and will he prevail? That being said, I'm going Alexandre Pantoja via second round submission because he's very fast and explosive in these early rounds. I think, the further on the fight goes, I think it favors Erceg, actually. I mean, Pantoja's looked pretty gassed in his last couple fights when it gets to the later rounds, especially in his last fight against Royval. But I do think he's just a higher caliber than Erceg right now. I think Erceg is a future champ, but I don't think that it's the right timing. I think if he had a little bit more time to build up and improve his skills, I do think he could be the guy to beat Pantoja. But I got to go Pantoja, second round submission in this fight. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you are excited for this card or if you are not excited for this card. I'm sorry for a little bit of the break I've taken in between these videos here. I'm trying to be more consistent. I will be releasing a bunch of videos this week, so be looking out for that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you do have an amazing day.